Top three guys that need to have a great summer for OU football. Number one on your list is
Or Mason Thomas. Since he's been on campus, whenever you talk to coaches, you talk to the defensive staff, he's been the best pass rusher since he stepped on there. Day one. Couldn't block him. Get off was too good, too fast, could bend around the edge, but he just hasn't had a bunch of snaps. The injury thing has really, really held him back. And, you could see the difference he brought against Arizona. He was healthy. He was finally ready to go. And he was a menace off the edge. And whenever you think about this defense, I think we've gotten really solid up the middle with the addition of Dominic Williams. I think at inside backer, we're really strong. I would even say at edge, I think, like, just generally speaking, we're experienced, we're good, we're sound. On the back end, clearly the best we've been. We're missing a premier rusher. We do not have a premier pass rusher, and we have not had a premier pass rusher since Obo. I mean, we've had some guys that have done some good things, but to put together,
Ronnie Perkins was solid.
Yeah, that's true.
He was real solid, but I don't think it's not like he was a double-digit sack guy a couple years in a row.
Consistency issues too, being able, availability and stuff. But like, we need that. That's kind of the missing piece, I feel like, right now of our defense. And in order for our Mason Thomas to be able to really capitalize and bring that, he needs to. I thought he put together a solid spring. That's good. Something to build on, and needs to have a really solid summer.
I would imagine Jerry Schmidt, and then also the athletic training staff, a lot of ankle exercises for our Mason Thomas throughout the summer. And that is one of the luxuries of the summer when you don't really have a ton going on as far as your class schedule. Yeah, you got to go to summer school. You got to go to class. You still have to do that. But you've got a lot of time to work on auxiliary stuff when it comes to your body. And he was never able to get that ankle healthy last season once he suffered the injury. So I don't know, but maybe he needs to call Steph Curry. I remember when Steph Curry had all those foot issues and ankle issues. I don't know, but that needs to be a big point of emphasis. Of course, getting bigger, faster, stronger, more explosive, but he needs to make sure that he is prehabbing those types of things. So he doesn't have to miss such an extended period of time like he did last season. He's got to get ahead of that type of stuff, or do everything he can to try to get ahead of it.
And here's the thing. I honestly believe that he could be a 8-sack guy. And that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but there's not a lot of double-digit sack guys in college football. For multiple reasons. It's hard to get to the quarterback in college football. The ball's out of their hand instantly a lot. I think he can get there. And you know this as well as I do. 8 sacks in the SEC hits a little bit different than 8 sacks in the Big 12. And they're both big, but if he could put together a season like that, and I think he's capable of it, Duke can make himself a lot of money, perhaps.
I'm with you. Number one guy on my list, Jacob Sexton. I really think, and it's interesting, you picked a defensive lineman, I picked an offensive lineman. I really think this team, the best version of this team, the best version of this offense, Jacob Sexton needs to be the left tackle. And that's nothing against Michael Tarquin. I actually thought he was better in spring. That he was definitely better in spring than I thought he was going to be. He looked much better in person in an Oklahoma uniform than he did on tape at USC. But when you look at Sexton and you think about the types of players that we are going to see in the SEC, Sexton just has much better measurables than Tarquin. He's got much better length. And if this offensive line is going to reach its ceiling and this offense is going to reach its ceiling, I feel like Jacob Sexton has to be your left tackle. And it all starts for me with him. He has to condition and develop the strength and stamina in his lower body. It takes a while, man. It takes a while. It went through it. You blow your knee out. It just takes a while to get to where you feel all the way back.
That's the thing. Going back to the when you miss time for a winter or a summer, it is very hard to chew it back, and that's kind of the spot he's in.
Yeah, a lot of people associate strength and being strong with having big arms and in that it's for an offensive lineman, it is all about your lower body and your core. That is where true power, like developing the power through the ground. Now it helps to have big arms. That's awesome. That's awesome too. But he's got to increase his endurance in his lower body, and he's got to get that surgical leg to where he's not even thinking about it anymore. And it's weird. It's not that hard to get the strength back, but it takes a while to get that strength, the combination of that strength and then the stamina. It took me a little longer to where you're feeling like on snap 65, you're still feeling, relatively good about how your legs are feeling and stuff like that. And I think that it's taken Sexton a while to get back. And this summer is where he's got to be feeling 100% coming into training camp, going into the season, because I really feel like if this offensive line is going to be a good offensive line, he is your bet from a measurable standpoint and an athleticism standpoint. He's your best option to be the left tackle. So he's got to have a tremendous summer and go and earn that spot and be that guy, because there are going to be some creatures coming off the edge in these games. So I think it is massively important that he has a good summer, and just being out there at practice. He has natural leadership ability. Like, I don't think he's uncomfortable in that role either. And I'm sure Branson Hickman coming in from SMU, he's played a lot of games. Centers are kind of naturally loud communicators, kind of naturally have some leadership talent to him. But Sexton, just how he is physically, and he's an Oklahoma guy. He's been here. He's been in the program. He's talented. Like, he needs to be a guy that develops as a leader for this team as well. So that I know that's a lot, but I just think that I think it's a huge summer for him.
Yeah, I totally agree. And he's one of the offensive linemen that I'm really excited about. We've seen the flashes from him, and gosh, the injury was the worst timing ever. But it puts him in a good position to fight back, have some adversity, and be able to overcome. And you're right. Like, if he can really battle, and if we get to a point in training camp or in the season where we start to hear about Sexton being the starter, I think that, because you're right, Tarquin looked really solid. If Sexton starts to really battle there and win some snaps, I think that's a really good sign for where the offensive line is.
They ended up at the end of spring having him at left guard, and but he worked there. Sure. I think he would, but I think the best version of this O line, you have a guy with his size and length and athleticism, like, that's a tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Any way you slice it, that's a tackle. So it's a really, really important summer for Jacob Sexton. All right, who do you have as your second guy?
Sawchuck.
Interesting.
He finished last year really strong. Was it 4 or 5 100-yard games in a row? Started to look really good. And then at the Arizona game, we saw him kind of hobble off the field with the hamstring again. Hamstring's been an issue for him. I think that's what it was. And then missed a little bit of time again in the spring. I, this is going to be a long, incredibly physical season. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hot. We're going to be kicking off at 2:30 in a bunch of football games. Hydration, that's whenever you start to have those soft tissue injuries, whenever you get dehydrated, it's hot, you're low on fluids. He cannot afford to continue to miss time. And to me, the summer is the time to figure it out. If you're having hamstring issues, that needs to be figured out in the summer. Right? If there's like a legitimate problem that you can like with your gait or with your stride or with some other injury that's causing it, like you got to figure it out. But for me, it goes back to building the endurance base, right? You get injured whenever you're tired and dehydrated. You build that base in the summer. And I hope that our backfield gets to a position where we can overcome someone not being there, but you got to have your best. And I'm told Sawchuck is the best. So he needs to be available the entire season. And, I don't think there's any better way to gauge it than to look and say, what type of summer did you have? Right? Do you continue to miss time? So I don't know. I think that's going to be incredibly crucial for him having a really good season. Like it can't be the last 5 games. Right? We need you the first game, the second game, all the way through. We got to have you the entire time.
I think that's a great one, especially when you think about the room as a whole. Feel good about it, but it would certainly be nice if Sawchuck could kind of separate himself from the pack
Yeah.
and be that main guy. Now, Caleb Hicks is the one that you just look at him physically. Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks the part, and we'll see. And we started to see Barnes look a little bit more like himself in spring, although I didn't think he looked completely all the way back from what we saw from him as a freshman. But Sawchuck he's been too much of a flash player for me.
Yeah.
And things may not be perfect along the offensive line against some of these defenses in the SEC. So we need Sawchuck to be as good as he's been physically. Ted, I think that's a great one. I completely agree.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, the other part of it, I love bringing up some of the other players because you hope it's a way more competitive backfield. And just throwing it out there, having a hamstring in training camp, you may not play again ever. We're starting to get that type of talent on this football team. You got the number 1 running back in the country that's coming in. I don't know, like we'll see what happens, but there comes a point whenever you get passed on the depth chart because you're having availability issues that you may lose your spot and never regain it. Every time you're standing on the sideline doing, walking the stadium or whatever it is they're doing with the injured guys, someone is out there getting your carries and getting your coaching and putting their film out there while you're doing nothing. I mean, that's how it goes.
I keep forgetting about Taylor Tatum.
Yeah.
He's on campus now, though. He's there.
That's right.
So also an interesting situation to monitor, to see kind of what the early returns are on him and how he looks in these workouts. Usually they ease the freshman in a little bit, but very excited to talk to some people to see what he's looking like early in the summer. My second guy, I'm going with Bauer Sharp. And I know that may be kind of a strange one because I feel like we learned quite a bit about him in the spring. Getting to see him out of practice, just hearing about what type of player he is, what type of worker he is. Few screws loose, which I love for my tight ends. But here's why I've got him on my list is I don't really know what the depth looks like at tight end. With what I saw from Devon Mitchell, and you can progress a lot in the summer and in a training camp, but he did not look like a guy that's ready to play in the SEC quite yet to me. Jake Roberts coming off surgery. He's played a lot of college football. Is he a guy you want to play significant snaps? I don't know. We'll
Which
see.
line those guys up as guys that need to have good summers, right? I mean,
No kidding. You put Josh Fanuel in that group as well. But I feel like I know that Bauer Sharp is a tight end that they trust to play a lot of snaps and to do a lot of things. And they were in 11 personnel pretty much all of spring. We'll see if one of these other tight ends looks good enough to where they feel good to put them out on the field in 11 or to do some 12. But Bauer Sharp better get himself in shape.
yep.
And from everything we've been told, it sounds like he's the type of guy that is very much willing to push the limits physically. But I'm just not sure where the depth in the tight end room is going to be heading into the season. So Bauer Sharp, he may have to play a ton of snaps for this football team. And you lay that foundation, that conditioning, that endurance, that stamina, like you lay that foundation in the summer. And I just think that he's going to be one of those guys that's got to live right at the edge of, oh, I may be about to pass out during these workouts. Like he needs to get extremely comfortable being fatigued because he may be, I don't want to say the only tight end that they trust, but like he's just going to play a ton of snaps, Ted, and he's got to get ready for that.
He's got to play a ton of snaps, and he's going to be doing a lot of different things. I mean, at most positions, you're able to settle into some type of a rhythm with what you're doing physically. Not really for him. He's going to be blocking a creature off the edge on one snap. He's going to be running ISO on the Mike backer on the next snap. He's going to be split out running a go route on the third snap. I mean, that's a lot of different volume and physically different asks of your body, and that creates even more fatigue. So I'm with you. The amount of volume that he's probably going to play this upcoming season is going to be huge.
Also, one other thing for him, the summer, everyone thinks about the workouts with Schmitty. And I get why people love the stories, but you're also doing a lot of football. But you've got 7-on-7 multiple times a week. You're doing team stuff. Like they're throwing routes essentially every day. Bauer Sharp, he's got to develop some chemistry with Jackson Arnold. We simply have to have a tight end that is a factor in the pass game. A tight end that opposing defenses need to at least be slightly concerned about. And it looks like he's got the athleticism to be that type of guy, but he's got to develop that chemistry, that relationship with Jackson Arnold in 7-on-7 when they're throwing routes on air. We need a tight end that can make some plays in the passing game. And so that's all part of this summer for Bauer Sharp. Yeah, it's to get in great shape, but it's also develop the chemistry with Jackson Arnold to where he's a factor in the pass game. Got to have it, man. We cannot go another season where teams just aren't concerned about our tight end catching the ball.
I know. It ain't good for recruiting either.
Correct.
It's hard to recruit a tight end when you don't throw the football to him. I mean, so that chemistry is critical. They got to be able to build that into our offense, and it helps your run game so much. I mean, I don't know. There's got to be you can probably statistically find the connection over the years with the amount of times your tight end catches the ball and how that ties into the running game. I mean, there are some guys that are kind of strictly receiver type tight ends, and that's not really what I'm talking about. Talking about the play action game and throwing to your tight end that's built off of your running game, and that's where we need to be.
Who's your third guy on your list?
Nic Anderson. Nic Anderson.
Saw him at the softball game yesterday. Looks
Okay.
good. Looks good physically.
Here's the thing. I think Nic Anderson is a superstar wide receiver. I also think Nic Anderson has missed way too much time to be a superstar wide receiver. And I don't know about you, but the best players I've played with are assholes. And what I mean by that, I don't mean like not approachable and jerks. I mean they're assholes about always being on the field, never missing anything. There comes a time whenever a football team, and like myself personally, everyone starts right here. And every time you miss a practice or a workout, in my book, this is how much I listen to you. And like your relevance on the football team is. It drops and drops and drops. He's missed too much time, in my opinion, for a superstar. He should be fighting to be on the field at all times, through spring, through training camp. I mean, that's just how it goes. He's got all the tools. But here's the wild thing. There's a bunch of people that have all the tools physically that never go anywhere. And I don't think he's going to be one of those people. I think he is going to go somewhere. But to get the absolute most out of his super rare physical traits, he needs to crank it up, in my opinion, the way he practices and carries himself other than game days. And I think the summer is the best way to jumpstart that for yourself.
Missed essentially the entire spring again.
Yeah.
And this is, I think it's clear he's going to make a lot of money playing football. But you don't want to get comfortable missing time.
Nope.
There is a fine balance there, and I choose to believe he's got no better example of how the injuries can pile up and how missing time can end up cutting your career short better than what he watched with his brother.
That's it. Yeah.
And he's got to do everything he possibly can this summer, work on all the preventative maintenance that he can with his body to where he doesn't miss time during the season. Because if he goes out and has a massive season in the SEC, he's going to be a first-round draft pick with this size and athleticism. Like, that's what's on the line for him.
That's it. It should be more. I want more reps. I want more practice catching the ball, more time on the jugs. I want more people throwing me routes. I want more time out there with the quarterbacks in like whatever summer 7-on-7 stuff where it's just the players working together. It should be more. And if you get into a habit of missing and being comfortable missing, it creeps in and it's hard to ever get rid of it. So to me, it's crucial for him.
I can't speak for what it's like now, but I just remember when I was there, and I'm sure it was very similar when you were there, Ted, the pressure you felt to get back if you had something minor and you had to miss a workout or miss a practice, or you just felt this extreme peer pressure to get back on the field. And I don't know if that's the case here or not anymore. I don't really know, but I just remember I broke my hand my senior year And essentially the training staff was like, oh, well, you can just lift. You can do it. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm not missing practice. So I just went out there and did all the individual stuff with a broken hand. Now I
You
couldn't
have
do
to be in
team.
the
It's
mix.
like I was just
Yeah,
like, no, no, no. I'm not missing. I cannot have the visual of me out there missing practice. Like I can't do that.
that's right. You like you have to understand the train is going. It is going with you or without you. And like the more time you're over on the side, out of sight and out of mind, not on the film, the coaches are up there, game planning, reviewing practice, watching it, and you're not on there, you're not being talked about. And they're developing new ways to get the new guys, figured out. How are they going to get involved? What do they need to work on? Like, we don't just stop and wait on you to get healthy for our offense or defense to move forward. That's not how it works. You can't work that way. You better be out there and be available. I mean, that's the team side of it. Like, the personal side of it is, this is kind of nice. It looks miserable out there. I'm comfortable right here. The natural reaction is to, this ain't so bad. The next time I have a little tweak in the ankle, maybe I'll miss a practice. Right? It creeps in. It creeps in.
I in hindsight, I didn't realize it at the time. At the time, I thought, oh, well, I've played a ton of football. I'm a 3-year starter. Missing spring isn't the worst thing in the world, but Beanbo had just gotten there and not having that spring to be out there like during team and getting those reps and getting reps in what he was asking me to do, the things he was asking me to do differently than what Patton had done before. I didn't realize it at the time, but it really set me back. And I think about it a lot actually. I think I would have played at a much higher level my senior year if I would have had those practices.
Yeah.
But that's you never know. But it's just an example of what you're saying. Like you
Yeah.
just missing time is, I mean, it matters, man. It just
And I'll
does.
tell you, like, and maybe this is a bad thing for me personally, but and this is just how I approached it. You, if you miss a practice or a time in a workout, uh, please, your time to speak is over. Like, you no. Did you practice this spring? Oh, okay. You better sit this one out. Like, you are at the bottom. You better work some time up where you've been out here and been available and been in the fight with the rest of us, because every damn day is miserable. And until you suffer like the rest of us have, in my opinion, you're out of the conversation. That's just kind of the way I approach it.
I I think if you could just if you could summarize Teddy Lehman's number one thought on team building, it would just be simply 2 words: suffer together. I think
Grind it.
that is at the core of your football philosophy.
Well, hey, let me just tell you, I'm a product of the environment that I came up in. Okay. I'll tell you
As
that.
am I, brother. As am I. My third guy quickly, PJ Adebawore. You went our Mason Thomas. I'm going with the guy that has better physical tools.
Yep.
And our Mason Thomas, he's got to get extremely explosive because he doesn't have great length, and he's got to make sure he does everything he can throughout the summer to stay healthy so that he can have a great fall. But PJ's just got measurables that no one else on this team has. And the thing that when you watch him, when I watched him throughout the spring, he's developing strength. There's just not a lot of fluidity. It's a little robotic. It's a little stiff. You see some twitch, but not like the high end level of twitch that you're looking for. I have no doubt he's going to continue to add straight. He's got insane length, but he needs to be more powerful and more explosive with his lower body. Right now, he's not filling out his pants the way he needs to fill them out. Yeah, I know what I just said. That has to change. And Ted, when you think about all the things you do during summer workouts, a lot of it is geared towards change of direction and developing suddenness, box jumps, jumping hurdles, the COD drills, like all of that stuff. Of course, all the individual specific, position specific drills that you do, all the footwork. I think it is, you combine that and all the stuff you do with flexibility to try to develop that bend and to have a little, become a little more fluid. Like all of that stuff for PJ this summer, it's massive. It's massive because he just needs to be a factor for this team on the edge. He needs to be, so that I think that developing that fluidity, that suddenness this summer to where he can become a factor, at least as a pass rusher.
Mhm.
I think I think it's huge for him.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. Physical traits are all there. Has the potential to be a very, I mean, there really is no limit on draft pick status or any of that because of the physical traits. Now, we talked about this a little bit, I believe, in the spring, but it's one of the things that worries me a little bit. I when I was out there and I was watching one-on-one pass rush, he went once, didn't have a great rush, and he didn't go again. He went and stood in the back. I watched David Stone. He went the first time. It was horrible. I think he fell down. Second rush was okay, but he got, none of it was great, but he was pushing people out of the way to get another rep in one-on-one pass rush. He's a 5-star defensive lineman that wants more. Give me more. I want to get better. I know it was ugly. That's fine. I want another opportunity at it. To me, it could have been the day, and maybe something. I don't know, but I hope that that is there for him. That kind of like I was talking about with Nic Anderson. Like when you have a player that has those type of physical traits, you got to be an asshole. I want more. Show me more. Give me more. I want more time. I want more detail. Like I know physically that I'm a cut above the rest. Show me something new that everyone else doesn't have and can't do. And I want to develop that, work that muscle and get the most I can out of it. I hope that's happening with him.
There is just a certain mentality you have to be great.
At
And
this level at college, you can be great. It's rare. You can be great by physically being the best. The next level, you cannot do that.
right.
There's too much money. The best players are the most gifted and they are the hardest working. They spend the most money and the most time on themselves in the offseason.